Greetings and salutations, East Africa and wherever else you're joining us from this morning. This is your world, yet another opportunity for us to interrogate matters that affect your day to day. Now, this 8th day of November, we take time to acknowledge a profession which holds what I call the real celebrities in society. I'm talking about teaching. Teachers are literally a child's second parent. They shepherd a child with all their ignorance through the world of knowledge and equip them to be contributing members of society in whatever field. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all products of a teacher somewhere, and it doesn't matter what level of education you've attained, a teacher somewhere left a mark in your life. So the question begs, despite this critical role they play, do we really treat them as such? Why is it that this profession is not revered like it was in the past? We answer these and other questions as we celebrate teachers of all cadres in a moment. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this is what else you can expect. Film festival offers Tunisian inmates a rare escape.
Tumewaletea chakula ya kutosha.
Worsening drought continues to ravage parts of the country's north.
It's commendably a commitment, because you can think about it as one child, but in my school, for example, we're 50 plus in a class.
As I mentioned, today we celebrate these heroes who have one way or another left an undeniable mark on our lives.
We wanted to be there with him and we couldn't be.
And families across Europe prepare to reunite with loved ones in the US as the country reopens its borders. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. As I mentioned, today we take time to celebrate the teachers amongst us. And that's why the question of the day to you is, who was your favorite teacher or lecturer and why? Who was or is your favorite teacher or lecturer and why? Talk to us. That hashtag is new normal. The teachers are clearly unsung heroes. And today we shall be delving into that conversation. And we'd like to hear whom you'd like to celebrate even as you look back to your education journey. And remember, we shall have a number at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to call and give them a shout out, feel free. We will accommodate you with the same. But before we get to it, let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 around the world. And this morning, that number stands at 250,613,449 confirmed cases. Out of that number, 226,843,520 are reported to have recovered, and unfortunately 5,064,644 have succumbed to COVID-19 around the world. In the country, the number stands at 253,833 confirmed cases. Out of that number, 247,300 have recovered, and we have lost 5,312 people to COVID-19 within the confines of Kenya. To some of the stories making headlines this Monday morning, and Sierra Leone's President Julius Maada Bio visits the site of a fuel tanker explosion which killed 98 people in the capital, Freetown. Speaking to the crowds, Bio said his government was going to take care of the ones that have lost their lives and hoped the community learned a lesson from the tragedy.
Let them coordinate the police, the military, and the health workers then. for make the able collect the one day when the body is really bad, for make we see how we will give them a dignified burial. So I want for you this opportunity for sympathize with everybody in this community, blame or no blame. For now, may we take care of the wounded, may we take care of the one that we don't lost their life, and as a community, come together and learn from this, so that never again, may we say never again.
Well, on to Tunisia, and a farmer proudly displays her own organic pomegranates and aubergines as demand surges in North Africa and abroad. Now, Hakim Alileche, owner of Olive Grove and olive oil brand De Beers, says to be an ecologist with this kind of activity is only a logical continuation to plant olive trees to maintain them to produce an olive oil that puts us directly in this atmosphere of respect of the planet and protection of the planet. We apologize for the confusion in the pictures for that one. That's the first time 3 prison inmates in Tunisia were allowed a brief taste of freedom for the sake of art. The prestigious Carthage Film Festival offered the prisoners the chance to briefly escape confinement under police supervision to help make a documentary about the festival. Back in the country and ahead of the 2022 general elections, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has warned state and public officers against engaging in political activity which would otherwise compromise ideals on political neutrality. This comes in the wake of a protest letter issued by the United Democratic Alliance, UDA, accusing Cabinet Secretaries Fred Matiang'i and Joe Mucheru of interfering with the mandate of IEBC and openly voicing their support for ODM leader Raila Odinga's 2022 presidential bid. Now, part of the letter by IEBC notes, and I quote, "We wish to observe that whereas Section 23 of the Leadership and Integrity Act 2012 seems to give cabinet secretaries and county executive committee members a lifeline to engage in political activity, the statutory provision no doubt falls foul of the constitutional underpinnings under Chapter 6 of the Constitution. There is need for all state officers and public officers to uphold political neutrality, and UDA had wanted the withdrawal of Interior Affairs Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i and his ICT counterpart Joe Mucheru from the multi-agency team on the 2022 general election preparations. And something that has Kenyans smiling and feeling very proud. Kenya's Perez Jepchirchir became the first reigning Olympic champion to win the New York Marathon women's title on Sunday. Jepchirchir took the victory in a time of 2 hours, 22 minutes and 39 seconds. The 28-year-old surged late to capture the 42 kilometers race 13 weeks after her Olympic triumph in Japan. Kenya's Viola Chepto was second in some 5 seconds behind, and Ethiopia's Ababel Yeshane third. In the men's race, Kenya's Albert Korir won in 2 hours, 8 minutes, 22 seconds after settling for second place in 2019 and seeing last year's race wiped out by COVID-19. Korir surged over the closing kilometers to claim victory in the race. It was Korir's first victory in one of the World Marathon majors and his first podium finish since winning the Ottawa Race Weekend Marathon in 2019. Morocco's Mohamed El Arabi crossed the line in second place, and Italy's Ayoub Fenel was third. Now, still in the country, death and desperation are still closing in on residents along the Marsabit and Samburu border as a worsening drought continues to ravage parts of the country's north. The community of mostly herders has lost much of their livelihood to the drought as livestock succumbed, with camels and donkeys being the latest group of animals to die due to a lack of water and pasture. The residents now want the government to step in and buy the remaining weakened animals to cushion them from loss. Samburu County Commissioner says the government has responded with aid to the most vulnerable households, and the drought, which is largely due to poor rainfall in the last two seasons, has brought about untold suffering to communities in the Asal areas, with the weatherman predicting even more depressed rains in the coming short rain season.
Sisi kupitia ile county steering group tumewaletea chakula ya kutosha ya binadamu na pia ya wanyama ili waweze, hasa yale ambao wamegonjeka zaidi, wasifariki.
To our conversation of the day this morning, which is focused on celebrating the role teachers play in our lives. Brian Mushiri spoke to two young people on the same in today's episode of Your Voice.
Young person's point of view, let's talk about the noble profession of teaching. Yes, that's right. I'm joined by Lynn Ndinda from KU and Kevin Minor, still from Kenyatta University, just to get to understand and celebrate our teachers, because we feel that they have done a good job so far. What do you guys think? How are you guys, Kwanza?
Can't complain. It's
Kevo?
hot.
Niko fiti kabisa.
Uko poa?
Very well.
Let's talk about teachers. Wewe uko na a favorite teacher, Kevo?
Well, back in high school I used to have a favorite teacher. She
Okay.
was my Kiswahili teacher. Alikuwa anaitwa Mrs. Gladys. She really got me through a lot.
Yes.
And it was part of my revamping hapo form 3 hapo.
Kubadilika.
After nimeacha kucheza kiasi, then she really took me under her wing and mentored me. Until date, she is my favorite teacher.
Lynn, any favorite teachers?
A few, but I think the one I can point out was called Miss Kitahi. She was both my physics teacher as well as my house mistress, and pretty much she was like an older sister but still a teacher.
Let's talk about teachers and how hard they work. Ukiangalia mtoto, ako na wazazi wake, amegrow, sasa amefika maybe 4 years sasa, ama 2.5 kwenda sasa shule. Unaona huyo mtoto aki hajui anything.
That's true.
Lakini unapelekea mwalimu and the teacher is able to actually turn them around, literally. What do you think of that?
I think it's very impressive. I personally have a little brother who's 6 years old. So exactly as you are telling it, I have seen him come, get out of the house knowing almost nothing, and then coming back home the same day with like a wide array of knowledge that we couldn't teach him. So I feel like it's very, very interesting, and it just goes on to show how teachers are just wired differently. Because this, first of all, a child that you don't often see. It's like a stranger unaletewa kwa darasa unaambiwa, now teach them how to do this thing called life. So I think it's very interesting how they just do it. It's a calling. That's what I'd say. It's a calling.
And Lynn, Kevo amesema this is just one child. Remember, that's your little brother. In school, this teacher has 30, 40, like this young one. Lynn, this is a skill, don't you think?
I think it's more than a skill. It's commendably a commitment, because you can think about it as one child, but in my school, for example, we're 50 plus in a class. So for them to dedicate, and not just one day, but years of their life to teaching not just one and not just 50, but continued roles of students would be, it needs a greater commitment than it would be to be just a normal person. Yeah.
Lynn, I gather you were in a high school that was national. Did you ever get yourself in trouble with these teachers?
I thought I was a good student, but apparently I wasn't as disciplined as I did. So very often, not so much, but oftenly I found myself in turmoil and clashing shoulders with several teachers. So I think I was a bit of a troublemaker.
Kevin?
Mimi, my story, first and second year were terrible. And in fact, this teacher, my favorite teacher, Miss Gladys, she came on during my second year, towards the end of my second year. So that is when I actually turned a new leaf. But prior to that, nilikuwa kichwa ngumu.
Let's talk about the unrest that we are witnessing in school. And I'll start with you, Lynn. What do you think?
Personally, I was in a national school, and the pressure to perform was insane. You had to keep up tabs, and you had to make sure your school has to keep being on top. So it kind of reverts, it reflects even in nowadays generation, but I feel as if students need to feel comfortable with talking to their teachers and not just letting out their anger through things like burning the school, but speak to these people. They're also human beings, so they'll definitely listen to you, but it doesn't need to come down to the burning of schools and dormitories and forcing schools to close down. Yeah.
Kevin, you're a colleague of mine here at the Nation Media Group.
Yes, I am.
And a conversation has constantly been put up, because you also comment on the Daily Nation, that the media is actually assisting with these fires, because every time we cover school unrest, there is the tendency of copycats. What do you think?
The whole essence of journalism is really informing so that people know what is going on around the world, and this is something real. What happens is that when these stories are sort of exaggerated and magnified beyond what they actually are, and then now everyone thinks that is all that is happening, and consequently these students, seeing that their colleagues are, you know, doing this, it's sort of like a mob, I don't know what to call it,
mob psychology of some sort.
Mob psychology of some sort. So everyone thinks, okay, that is all that is happening this season, so let's start banning schools this season. So I think even the way as a journalist or as a media practitioner, the way we approach this is sort of tell the story, but really isolate them. Don't say now schools have begun now banning schools. Isolate the cases. Say that this school did this, and really put it at the, you know, at its own. Like just be very specific to that.
As an individual case,
as
not really to make it.
Don't make it as if now the schools in this region have decided to ban their schools.
I'm going to give you at least a chance, all of you, to have a final remark, perhaps 20 seconds max. I'm going to start with the lady. Lynn, any final remarks, please?
For teachers to continue to encourage the students, definitely, and be approachable towards them. Their futures matter, but as well, these are people that you're bringing up. So encourage these people and be welcome to them coming to speak to you about these things in life, not just academics, but as well molding their personalities and not just their careers, but even their behaviors, their tendencies, and who these people will become in the future, not just in offices, but as a human being. Yeah.
Very eloquent, I must say. Kevin, any final remarks?
Like Lynn had said earlier, there's the issue of remembering that teachers are human beings. So as a student, you may be sort of clouded with this idea of authority. Just always remember that these are human beings. They might not come off as such or appear as your mom or dad back at home, but you know, keep on engaging them, keep on talking to them, because that is exactly why they are there.
Fantastic, Kevin. Thank you very much. That's this morning's episode of Your Voice.
A candid conversation there between Brian and those two young men, and of course man and woman, even as they talked about their experience with teachers through their education journey, and of course a few lessons to be learned from both parties from that conversation. Remember, this morning we're taking time to celebrate the teachers amongst us, because one way or another they have left an undeniable mark, and we all are a product of a teacher somewhere. And to help us walk this journey, even as we understand more about the teaching profession, and of course what has changed since the late Arap Moi, that is teacher number one as we remember him, used to say that this was one of the most noble profession out there. What has changed since then, and what can we do better to ensure that we safeguard this profession and of course the education system for future generations? In studio with me, Lydia Ngwiri, who is a high school teacher and she's also a professional counselor. Next to her, Martha Mutei, who is an ECD teacher from Central Primary School in Kitui County. Thank you for making time. We're also joined by Dr. Suleiman Mwangi, who is a senior education lecturer at the St. Paul's University. Also joining us all from Nairobi, also Agri Namisi, Executive Secretary, Nat Bungoma East. Thank you for making time, and we shall be joined by another lecturer later on in the broadcast as soon as we get him set up. Thank you all for being part of this conversation, and of course I am privileged to be in the presence of a lot of influence in as far as the teaching practice is concerned. So let's start off with just understanding why this profession in the first place. Lydia, why did you become a teacher?
Thank you so much. I did not want to become a teacher in the first place. When I was choosing what I wanted to become, because I'm a history teacher today and I loved history, I wanted to become a lawyer. Unfortunately, I did not get the mark at A level. So I ended up at Kenyatta University doing teaching, but I did not know what I was doing. I came to realize I'm actually doing teaching when I went for teaching practice. And that is when it dawned to me that I'm actually becoming a teacher, and I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it because I found myself now impacting on human beings. And because they loved me, I reciprocated by now loving teaching. And since then, I've been a teacher for 34 years.
34 years. That is a long, long time. And I'm assuming you served in different schools and different capacities through it all. But you're also a professional counselor. Yes. Why did you also jump onto this profession too?
As I was teaching, I found students coming to me with issues that I was not able to help. And I asked myself, why are they coming to me and not to others? There must be something in me that is attracting them. And because I could not do it, because I was not trained to do that, I went back for training. And I did my higher diploma and my master's in counseling, and there I am as a counselor now. And I do adolescent and young adults.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And definitely that is something that comes in handy in this day and age. And we'll talk more about the impact of the same in a moment. Martha Matei, why did you become a teacher?
I actually didn't choose to become a teacher too. I wanted to become a medic, but my marks did not take me to medicine. And right now, I actually don't teach ECD as per se. I train teachers of ECD, and I'm also a primary school teacher at Central Primary School. So as I started teaching primary school, I tended to teach the young children, the lower grade children, which is more of ECD. So I wanted to go and do something more about teaching these young children. So that is when I went for a higher education to do early childhood education, in a degree in early learners. And so I ended up teaching teachers and handling the small children. It is my passion. At first, I didn't like it at all, but I have something that attracts children. Whenever I go, I just find little children coming to me. And so I have passion of it right now. Okay. I love teaching.
All right. Yeah. You say that you did not like it at first. What was the deterrent at that point?
Long time ago when I was a young girl, I didn't like how teachers were. Some teachers didn't look so presentable. So I didn't like to be like them. Until when I started looking at some teachers later in life, in upper primary, I started admiring them. And so I was like, if I don't get this medicine thing, then I can also do teaching. And that is why when I got into teaching, I was okay with it.
All right.
Yeah.
How long has it been?
I have taught for 17 years as a teacher, primary school teacher, and 7 years as an ECD trainer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We celebrate you.
Thank you.
Dr. Suleiman, how many years in the teaching practice?
23 years in a secondary school for 1 year, about 2 years in an Institute of Technology, and 19 years now training teachers. Yes.
And why did you get into this space?
I think we have similar experiences with my colleagues. I didn't choose to be a teacher. I think I would say teaching chose me. Then there was a turning point. And just like my colleague here, the turning point was during my teaching practice. The last parade that we had, and we were addressing the students. And I commented and said that I didn't want to be a teacher. But the principal of the school, I was at Huruma Girls in Nairobi.
Yes.
Mrs. Kabeto commented and said, even though he has said he didn't want to be a teacher, he's a good teacher. I think that statement made me think of what I'm doing. Then my second turning point is after only 1 year teaching in secondary school, I went for my master's. I think that's the point at which it dawned on me. And for the duration that I've been teaching, I think it's one of the things I would really love and continue love to do.
Okay.
I have a mantra sort of, or a philosophy, which is every day is a day to make a difference. And I've seen that difference in the people that I've interacted with, particularly my students. I'm here actually, basically because of a student, my former student. So that's something I love to do. Yes, thank you.
Okay, now that we say that teachers leave an undeniable mark on us, clearly even the students that you work with also impact on your profession. Let's hear from Agri. Why did we become a teacher?
Yeah, thank you very much, Gladys. I never wanted to be a teacher. But I think my mother's wish and spirit, because when I lost my mom in 1984, there was a permanent secretary minister of defense, the late Joseph Muriro, came to bury my mom. And when he buried my mom, people talked about, can you assist this young man who has finished Form 6 and is just taking changa around the village? Joseph Murillo, in his wisdom, picked me after 3 days after burying my mom and brought me to the Gogo Teachers College, and that is how I became a teacher.
Oh, wow.
It is the wishes of my late mom, and I think her spirit still lived that I become a teacher. And I've really enjoyed being a teacher. I have worked well. I have been in class for 8 years as a teacher, 3 years as a debut, 11 years as a head teacher. And the teachers promoted me by electing me to become the executive secretary NAT.
Bungoma East, okay, and literally for Agri, teaching saved his life. And if you can do the math there, all-inclusive, the years he served, they come to 30 years of service. We celebrate each and every one of you for the service you put across to ensure that we fashion these young minds and also release us to the world as, you know, contributing members of society. But now I would like us to get a little bit more intimate with this conversation, and I'll start off with you, Dr. Suleiman. What is the objective and mandate of a teacher from where you sit and from your experience?
Thank you for the question. For me, the mandate of a teacher is to help the learner to bring out the best in him or her, in this case, and achieve their maximum potential. So the work of a teacher is generally to make decisions, to make judgments of what is it that this learner can do and what is his or her potential. So how do I help him to bring out that potential in him or her? That's what I think is the role or the mandate of a teacher. Okay,
so if you were to put it that way then, do you think teaching is a calling or a profession, Lydia?
It is both. It is a profession because you must have the skills. Because you cannot work from the shamba and go to teach. Yes. There must be skills. There are also legal issues involved. So you must have those ethics of teaching. But more so, it is a calling. Because even if you go to school and you do not like doing it, it will not work. Even if you have all the skills in this world, it will not work. Because it calls more than just teaching, more than just imparting skills. There is also that relationship with the runner, so that the runner can get what you are talking about. So it is more of a calling than a profession.
Interesting, interesting perspective. Yeah. So now that most of you say you ended up in teaching not because you really wanted to be a teacher. Yes. For example, Martha, it's been many years later. When you look back, are you glad you made this choice?
I am very glad I made the choice. I really enjoy teaching nowadays. When I'm waking up in the morning, preparing to go to teach, I really feel it. I feel I have to go, impart knowledge, shape children's lives. I just thank God that I chose this direction.
Yeah. Okay, so now if you ended up being a medic, this is something you'd have missed out on perhaps?
Yeah, I would have missed it out.
Okay, and what I would like to understand is when we were growing up, and I think even now in some areas, when you hear somebody's a teacher or a child of a teacher, people literally give you some sort of status in society. I don't know if you have agri-buck, but I'd like to understand, what about teaching back then made the teaching profession revered, Lydia?
Those years, the greatest profession was that of teaching. And our parents looked upon a teacher as a very important person and respectable person. So that's what they instilled in us, even us now. A teacher is very important. You are in school with children of teachers. Those are the people that had shoes, they were eating bread, and so on. So then they have a stone house building. Yes, when yours is not. So they are in a different class from yours, and therefore everybody admired a teacher. But now our generation, after we went and became other people, people came to realize teaching has no money. And that is the problem. Teaching has no money. Other professions have money. And a teacher is a poor person. And therefore, children started now changing their attitude towards the teacher, because even the parent is like, tulikuwa tunasoma na yeye. Now me, I'm driving, she's not driving because she's a teacher.
Oh, wow.
Tulikuwa tunasoma na yeye, but me, I'm a lawyer, I'm an architect, I'm what. So we see now the teacher has been left behind. The other professions have gone up. And therefore, what are we teaching our children? It's not a good career. Just ask 50 students in a class. Even now I ask them, who wants to become a teacher? None, and I'm teaching them. None of them want to become a teacher. Why? Because the attitude of the society changed towards the teacher, and it starts with the parent, influencing the children. And it is like the poor teachers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Martha, you said you didn't want to be a teacher because you used to look at the teachers and you do not like, at times, how they were presented or how they presented themselves. Yeah, is Lydia perhaps alluding to the fact that we are back there again in a different way?
Somehow, you know, those days, you used to tell that it is end of the month when you saw teachers with bicycles and jerry cans tied at the back. You'd tell this is a fleet of teachers going to get their salary with shoes that were, and coats that were, like they were carrying things, So when I looked at them, I was like, no, I don't want to do like it. I don't want to be like this.
What was the jerry can for?
For paraffin, for the whole month. Yeah, jerry can for stoves and lamps.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were looked at like poor people. Yeah, so I didn't want to become like them. But later on, I realized that they are people, who make career people. And I realized that they are co-creators with God. And so I wanted to be part of them. And that is what I do today. I want to make children better than the way they saw us. I want to be presentable so that they may look at me and say, I want to become a teacher like Teacher Mutei. I want to become a teacher like Teacher Lydia. So that is what I'm trying today. Because during those days, people didn't want to become teachers.
Okay. Yeah. And Lydia is saying that we are sort of back to that time in a different time.
Yeah.
So even as you impart knowledge and perhaps not only show them that you can actually live a lucrative life, what else do you tell them about the profession?
Well, I tell them that this profession is a noble one. It is a profession just like any other. It is a profession that has God's hand in it, such that when you teach, seriously, a teacher cannot be paid by TSC. A teacher cannot be paid by the employer. The teacher's payment comes from above. And that is why you see teachers never aging. My colleague is saying that she has been in the teaching profession for over 34 years.
Yes.
But she looks so young. Why? Because she has been teaching. Teaching makes you look young. Yeah? Teaching makes you feel happy. When you're happy, when you talk and jump with these children, you never age.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the youngness it rubs off on you.
Yeah.
The youth.
And the laughing with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you a better person. You know, teachers, okay, if you follow the trend that is going on today about people committing suicide and people doing funny things, I think teachers are not part of this. You know why? Because when we interact with our children, when we talk with them, when we are counseling them, we're also counseling ourselves. When we are interacting them, when we are feeling happy with them, we don't get stressed so much.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Suleiman, when you think back, I mentioned that our late second president, Daniel Arap Moi, was teacher number one. And I think in itself, it carried a lot of clout. What about that perhaps also encouraged you that you're on the right path?
I may not know in terms of, or I may not comment in terms of him encouraging teaching, but I think in a way his government expanded education largely, and including teacher training, secondary school education, as well as primary school education. So there are many opportunities for people. I remember even when I was in the university, for instance, I had several interactions with him. I was in the choir, the university choir, so we would meet, and I think for about 3 years in my university life, undergraduate, I was never at home during Christmas. We were always at Kabarak. So I think that also helped me to see it in a different way, and being close to the president in this case. So to that extent, I would say, and especially the expansion of education, definitely his government and himself, he contributed towards the betterment, the betterment of the teaching profession.
I remember growing up, we had these choirs that were made up of teachers that would go and sing for him in Kabarak. Did you ever do so?
Mine was not the teacher's choir, it was the university choir.
I see.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So you still had the pleasure.
Yes, and I did music as well as my subject in the universities. That's what I taught in high school for about 1 year. Yes.
Okay, let's bring in Professor Hezron Mogambi. He is an education expert and lecturer at the University of Nairobi. How many years have we served in this profession so far? Hezron? Unmute your microphone, Hezron. Are we together? Okay, I think he cannot hear me, so let's rectify that in a bit. But Agri, Namisi, you've said you've been at this 30 years on. When you think about it, now that it saved your life literally, for you, is it a calling or a profession?
Mine is both. Yeah, professionally, because as a profession, you know, you get trained, you qualify and graduate, then that becomes a profession. But as you enter into it, it has been a serious calling. I feel very good. And if I was given another chance to choose the profession, I would still choose teaching as a profession. It has helped me, and it has also helped me shape other people and even my children. My children have been able to go to school, and with that type of humble beginning, they feel like they have to do something better. But all of them are not teachers. I have 3 children who have graduated and they are working, but they decided not to choose teaching as a profession. They are doing other things, but they are always thinking that I have done better for them. And if I'm given an opportunity, let me tell you, I'll still go back for teaching. And you know, I have only 2-3 years to retire, to reach 60, but I'll still want to do teaching elsewhere, even in church, if that is what will happen.
What about this profession do you miss, especially back in the day? Lydia said there was something special about it when we were younger.
Yes. This thing had a special thing because all the people, even the parents, other leaders, used to talk good about teachers. They used to praise teachers everywhere they are. What has happened right now that the teacher is demonized. A teacher, people look at a teacher as a problem. Anything that is happening right now, people are thinking about a teacher. All teachers are demoralized because, you know, one good thing is that they have improved from the bicycles to motorbikes and vehicles. Yes, but that does not give them happiness. The teachers are not happy because in every funeral, in every public place, elected leaders will want to talk ill about teachers, and that is what is happening. That our students, our pupils, don't give teachers respect the way we used. I used to, you'll meet a teacher with a bicycle and pick the bicycle almost 1 kilometer, walk with it to school. The respect we had given our teachers was high. But for now, a teacher is looked upon as a useless person. Yes, any person, and they even, when you ask in class, the students to know who wants to become a teacher, nobody will raise a hand. Nobody will want to become a teacher. Therefore, the generation that is coming also will find themselves into teaching. It will be by accident.
Okay. Interesting perspective, and one that is actually a sad one, I must say. So when did the rain start beating us, Lydia? When did we get to a point of, you mentioned us looking at teaching vis-a-vis other professions, but then again, the welfare of teachers was catered for back in the day. So when did the rain start beating us?
I think it's when we started looking at other professions as professions rather than teaching profession. Because, and especially with the young people now, there is this competition for who has what. So if a teacher does not have, because the salary is not good, remember there was a time the teacher salary, especially in the 90s, the teacher salary was in the papers and everybody is asking, how do they survive? Which is true. It was very retro. But we are in a situation where we are looking up at money and how much I earn more than my satisfaction. Because a teacher, and that's why I'm calling it a calling, because if you look at the salary, you will not teach. Because it involves so much. It's emotionally draining because you are not just teaching. There's also molding. Because it's not just imparting skills, there's also molding the child, which is very, it needs a lot of commitment. And therefore, this teacher, if you look at the salary, you will not teach. And that's where the world we are in today. It's like, it's money. How much am I getting from this? Not what am I feeling about it. So self-actualization is what will make it more of a calling than just a profession. Because my satisfaction is when I meet you and I say, wow, this was my student. When somebody calls me and, oh, Mrs. Gwere, you are still teaching. I am doing this and this and this. And it is good. When I come here and find quite a number of my students,
yes,
this is my, and that's what keeps you feeling young. Because it's only a teacher who wants to help people to do better than themselves. When I'm in class, that is my idea. That is my goal. I want you to do better than me. But the world we are in today, it is nobody else should be better than me. I should be, and especially with social media. And the photos we are sending of, I am in Australia, I am in America, I am what, I'm doing what, I'm driving this and this and this. Where are you doing, when are you going to get that as a teacher with a little salary? But when you look at the salary, we won't work as teachers. And unfortunately now, the young people we are getting to the profession, that is where we are. That is exactly where we are.
So I think at this point, when we come back from this short break, I'll ask, are people getting into the profession for the right reasons? And I'll hear from you in a moment. But remember, the question of the day to you is, who was or is your favorite teacher or lecturer? Talk to us. That hashtag is new normal, even as we celebrate these teachers amongst us, because one way or another you have come across one and they have left an undeniable mark on your life. So if we can have some of that feedback. We have Benito, who says, James Moura, a primary school teacher and my class tutor. I learned most basics in life through him. May the Lord forever bless him. Thank you, Benito. Jadili says, Herr Mwathi, he used to give us the school radio to practice German over the weekend, but we were actually using the radio to listen to 98.4 Capital FM at night. Wajanja. Or at least he set you up in the right way to actually see the world bigger than just your classroom. Edward Mungai says, Mrs. Wafula was my best primary school teacher. She really understood little boys' lives. Thank you, Edward. Another here from Roberto Mutua who says, Mr. Combo, St. Mary's Kithangaine High School, Machakos, year 2004. You were such a great mentor to me. God bless you wherever you are. Mwalimu Roberto, asante sana, and kudos, Mr. Combo. Arori Kevin says, always my all-time lecturers, Professor Mbakaya, Professor Wagai, Rogo University. God bless them abundantly. Asante sana. Another here from Joksi Alvaro who says, Mrs. Thuku, Ihurerio Primary School, asante sana. We have a last one here for now, Mutwiri, who says, class of 2005, Moi High School, Mbiruri in Embu, our tough principal, Dr. Delis Coppers, shaped us or shaped who we are today. We celebrate you. So, Mutwiri, thank you for reaching out. And remember, you have an opportunity to give a shout out to your best teacher or lecturer while you were in school, or if you are still in the education system, who is your current teacher or lecturer. We'll be right back. Thank you for making time for your world. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today our theme, teachers, the unsung heroes, because they really are, considering the critical role they play in each of our lives. And we are celebrating them this morning. And in studio, I have three of them. Lydia Ngwiri, high school teacher, also a professional counselor. Also, we have Dr. Suleiman Mwangi, senior education lecturer at St. Paul's University. Martha Mutei, she's a teacher herself, but also an ECDE trainer. Also joined virtually with Agri Namisi, Executive Secretary, NAT Bungoma East. And of course, we have Professor Hezron Mogambi, who is an education expert and also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Again, I say this, we salute you and thank you for making time for this conversation and helping us understand where we're from and where we should be heading to. When we took a break, we were talking about why, or the reasons why people get into this profession. And both Mutei and, of course, Suleiman, you are trainers. If everyone is comparing the profession depending on what you take home, are we teachers getting into the profession for the right reasons, especially now with the provision of a private education? I'll start with you, Martha.
The people who are getting into the teaching profession right away, if they were to look at what they will take home, we would have a few of them. Because whatever we take home is so little compared to what we give to the society and to the children. So the people who are getting into the teaching profession should not look at the salary and what they will take home, but look at what they are going to impart to the children. A teacher cannot be paid. A teacher's salary is only God who can pay a teacher. So let us come into the teaching profession not expecting too much. Though teaching is better than it was in the past. Teaching has become better. The salary that used to be given in the 90s of 3,000 and even a few coins on top of it, today it's better. But still, it is not enough compared to the other careers. It is not enough. So teaching is better, yes, but those who come into teaching, they should not come expecting so much. Just come to serve, because teaching is a calling. As much as it is a profession, teaching is a calling.
Have you come across those who've come for training and clearly you can tell they want to, you know, get into the private sector so that they can get more money, because we're living in a real world with real issues, right? So have you found that sort of oxymoron in this whole journey?
They have come for training, like the ones who come for training, like especially those who come straight from the secondary schools and they come to train as ECD teachers, and they expect to get out of the college and start teaching and start earning a lot of money and start driving. They are there. And when they don't get that, they get so demoralized and start selling. They become hawkers.
Hawkers of what?
Masks. And anything else, because they did not expect that. Because they had very high expectations. They expected to get out of teaching with their certificates and diplomas and start earning. And yet, when they go out there, they get employed by the county governments. And the county governments, some of them are not friendly to the ECD teacher. For example, you'll find a county government paying an ECD teacher 8,000 shillings per month. What would you do with 8,000 shillings? There are some who pay very well. We are so happy for them. May God bless them. We have some counties who are paying ECD teachers like over 40,000, even at 30,000, and they have their welfare taken care of. But there are others who pay them so little, 10,000 shillings for certificate and 12,000 shillings for diploma. What will you do with 12,000 shillings per month? You have a family to take care of. You have your own issues to tend to. So it is a bit demoralizing.
Yeah.
That is why some of them leave this profession and do other things. Yeah.
Okay, all right. We hear you. Now, in October this year, there was a new TSC salaries and grading system for teachers, and that was hailed to be quite, you know, a great step in the right direction. And if I am not wrong, perhaps you can correct me on this one now that you leave this reality. The amounts, especially from that starting teacher all the way to the chief principal, changed drastically. Right, Suleiman, has this perhaps given the morale for those that are still in the profession? And even as you train these teachers, what do you encourage them, considering that they're living again in a real world with real issues?
Thank you for the question. I think I would look at it slightly differently. I have, when students come to my university during orientation, one of the things that I normally ask them is what is the reason as to why they chose? Or in the first place, did they choose teaching? And of course, you get a mixture of them. There are some who actually chose teaching, a few. But you'll get a good number who perhaps that was not their choice. Either somebody chose for them, could be a parent, or could be in high school. They didn't know what they were doing, perhaps like us, some of us in terms of choice.
Yes.
But in the process, I encourage them. And one of the things I say, whatever you do, you need to have passion. It's not an issue of the teaching profession alone. You need to have passion. If you have passion, the rest of the things will follow, if you have that passion. And we have found teachers, even today, even those ones we are mentioning, who are very successful. Why? Because there is something that they were doing that they were passionate about. And through that, they are able to get into other things. You may not have all the material things like the people that we may think about in this world, billionaires and the like, but you live a life that is satisfactory. Your children, for example, for those of us with families, are learning and doing very well. You have more blessings in this case. So the key thing I ask them, and sometimes I use an analogy, and I tell them, if, for example, your interest is to go and do farming, then I would rather you use this money and go and buy cows, for example, and do a better job in that area, as opposed to coming to class, to teaching, and eventually you affect many more people in the rest of your life. I've gone for teaching practice, and sometimes when I sit in some of the staff rooms waiting to see my students, some of the stories I hear in some of those staff rooms, not all of them, of course, they are not encouraging stories. They are stories of people who are lamenting. And I ask myself, would I want to live a life that's always, every day I wake up for, let's say, 9 months in a year, I'm always lamenting or hearing others lamenting? You know, that's a very difficult life. It actually affects you in the end. Yeah. You're not able to do much. So that's the encouragement I give to them, that they need to look at it differently. And my colleagues have said very right. If we have to focus on money alone as an issue, then definitely there are even not just teaching. There are many areas we will not get into. So the passion is what drives you, and you see satisfaction in what you do. I have many examples I can give of my students that today, like even when they heard I'm coming here, you find comments being sent through my social media accounts, and that gives you satisfaction. Somebody is, seeing that you did something, you helped them. Some of the stories that you've read or read on social media are encouraging, I believe, to those teachers. So wherever they are, I believe they have seen they're encouraged that they did something that is positive. Yes.
Okay, let's bring in Hezron on this conversation. Professor, you have been at it over 30 years. The welfare of teachers seems to be a thorn in the flesh. Why do you keep at it?
Thank you, Gladys. I didn't get your question asked.
The question is, it's been over 30 years for you. The welfare of teachers has continually been a thorn in the flesh. Why do you keep at it?
Well, thank you, Gladys. I can get you now. You see, as my colleagues have just said, I went into teaching because I felt like there was that calling at that time to serve humanity. And you know, teachers, as you know, my friends have said, is a calling. I mean, if you are in that teaching profession and you leave after 2 years, 3 years because you are disappointed, it's because that was not your calling. And we professionalize as we move on. And so I think there is that urge, there is that calling which has kept me through. And remember, Gladys, I have done this through high school and now university for a long period of time. That to pass on information, and what we are doing today, Gladys, is one of it, because we are educating society, we are educating Kenyans, we are educating the public, and that urge continues even after, for example, you officially retire, because even that retirement is just, you know, within government or even when you are working in private sector, but you find that teachers will go out there and continue teaching, as it were, in different contexts. So I am still there many years later because that urge, that calling is still within me, and I'm not seeing the fire getting out anytime soon.
Okay, and you know, the pandemic has illuminated the importance and the role of a teacher in our lives. I think any parent out there knows how those 9 months looked for us and how we really gave the teachers the respect they deserve. Agri, what can you underscore in as far as the importance of taking care of these people that impart knowledge and literally, as Lydia put it, create these career people?
Yes, one thing, you mentioned that what went wrong, and I wanted to state very, very clearly that something went wrong when we started commercializing education. That when there was a lot of mushrooming of training colleges, and therefore very many teachers were trained. After that, Gladys, we have some teachers who have trained, and they have been out there for almost 15 years before employment. Some of them, after being trained, they decide to do other things, other side hustles, for the purpose of ensuring that they survive. Then this is a person who has stayed out of teaching for about 15 years. When you employ that person could have lost some of the skills that person was trained to ensure that you are able to impact the same thing, knowledge, to the children. So what is happening right now is that the teachers who are being now recruited have been out of teaching profession for about 15 years. They have not practiced teaching. When they come to start teaching, Gladys, I want to tell you, they require to go back for in-servicing to continue teaching effectively. That is something that happened that we need to correct for the near future. That initially, I remember when I left college in 1986, I left college in May 1986. I started teaching in July, and I was very effective. I was an effective teacher because everything that I had learned in college was fresh. This time, the information is stale, the training is stale, and you are taking this teacher after 15 years. Some of them even have retired, cannot be employed by Teacher Service Commission, because the moment you reach 45 years, Gladys, you don't qualify to be employed on permanent and pensionable basis.
Oh, wow.
So we need, yes, we need to ensure that like President Moi, when we were talking about, and in fact, very many people started talking about President Moi, alikuwa anapenda shule za wasichana, Moi girls, and what have you. But Moi, every time there was an activity of a teacher, President Moi was there and literally gave the support to the teachers. The teachers felt that the President of the Republic of Kenya was recognizing them. For now, and let me tell you, after President Moi, Kibaki never talked anything about teachers. President Uhuru Kenyatta does not seem to know that the teachers are there, and therefore the teachers are demoralized. We need, as leaders, the politicians need to talk good about the teachers, so that the children, and it will come when you will go to what is happening in school, unrest in schools, is because we have demonized teachers. Teachers, the children look at them. You'll find that the students were even invited to be called presidents. They were elected to be presidents, and they were even attending board of management. And this was brought up by Dr. Matiang'i at that given time when he was the Minister of Education. So the children looked at the teachers as equals. And that is what is happening right now. You cannot change unless we change the thinking of the society, so that the society will value a teacher seriously. That is where we can now move forward, so that the teacher, even if he is not earning good money, but a teacher is given the respect that he deserves in society, so that the children will realize that without them, like me, without my teacher in primary, in secondary, I could not be where I am right now.
Very well
I want to state, yes.
Okay, very well said. Now, I know Hezron needs to drop off at 8:30, so let me engage you a little bit on this one. When you hear the teachers cry over and over again, and clearly there is room to improve their welfare, how do you see an ideal situation looking like? Hezron? Please unmute your microphone.
Gladys, what I'm saying, sorry about that, is that you see the present teacher today is faced with so many circumstances, and I think the speaker before me has just enumerated part of it, because the teacher is cornered by many issues which have actually greatly eroded the credibility and status in society. The many changes we have and the lack of consultation, especially among stakeholders, has left the teacher very vulnerable, as it were. And therefore, I think I foresee a situation where if things don't change and continue this way, the stature of the teacher continues to be eroded. Consultations and within stakeholders, whether it is parents, whether it is the government, TSC, and even the private employers, in private schools and all that, will be very, very important in ensuring that the teacher delivers, because the teacher works within a context, within society, within a village, within a town, and I can see all the challenges that we have today, even in university education. You see the challenges still exist, is because of, one, a lack of consultation, two, lack of motivation for the teacher, whether it is that teacher who is in kindergarten or running all the way to the university. Three, the teacher.
Oh my, we seem to have lost Mogambi. He really is trying to stay on. Do we have him? Okay, let's continue.
Gladys, can you
yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yes. So I'm saying, unless those contexts change, the teacher eroded, which in the end will not help society itself, because all the time we have challenges, whether it is in the school system, from the lower levels to the higher level, the blame will squarely, in most cases, end up with the teacher. But the teacher has not been facilitated contextually, policy-wise, infrastructure-wise, support systems. All these things have been eroded and have left the teacher in a very slippery situation. And so, therefore, I think that as much as the teacher will continue working very hard to ensure that they deliver on their mandate in different contexts, the support system or systems must be forthcoming.
Okay.
If they are not granted, then we'll continue complaining about the teacher.
I hear you. And speaking of blame, it has been talked about the unrest, the ongoing unrest in schools. Kakamega High School has been closed indefinitely, as you heard, the weekend following an incident in which fire destroyed a dormitory. And of course, this is one of the many incidences we've seen in the recent past. The question was put across in the earlier conversation amongst the young people. Who is to blame, the parent or the teacher, especially now that we're in a pandemic and a lot of things have come to the fore? Let me hear from Martha.
Thank you for the question. We have the agents of socialization. And in the agents of socialization, socialization begins at home. A parent has a role to play to instill values and morals to a child. So when the child goes to school, they are already socialized. There are those values that are already instilled in the child. So when the child goes to school, whether primary and all the way to the secondary school, because the unrest is mostly in the secondary schools, the child must have been taught how to live with others. The child must have had a way, the father, mother, and everything, and all the extended family members must have prepared this child on how they will behave when they join the other children. And the reason why the unrest is again is when I touch on the part of the teachers. Some teachers are, because of the stress and all that, they may not give an ear. They don't give dialogue to these children. They have issues. They are stressed. Imagine staying in school for a whole term without that midterm as they were asking for. They really needed a break because they wake up very early in the morning. They have so much to do all the way up to late in the night. They need to be listened to. The children need to be listened to. By who? By the teachers. So we teachers, we need to listen to the children and hear their grievances. And again, the children, I still talk about the parents. Parents are not there. When the children go back home, they don't find their parents. They are so busy looking for money. They are busy away from home. Maybe they are, the mothers are not there. Yet, this 1 week that we have right now is the week that we should bond with our children, show parental love, and engage them, and talk to them, and hear them too. Parents have a role to play also. They should listen to their children's grievances. There are children who suffer in school in silence. So when they come home, they need to be listened to. The parents need to listen to them. So this thing here is touching on all of us. The teachers, the parents, and even the children, because the children should be disciplined.
Aha. Martha, you remind me, I take my son to a school where the principal always reminds us in every meeting, your job is to teach your children good manners. Our job is to teach the children the curriculum. Lydia, you are a professional counselor. When you listen to these children, where is the gap?
The major issue here is where are they coming from? If you look at what happened the 9 months, or during the pandemic, those 9 months, what were they doing? There is nothing in this one they did not do. They had phones, they were watching pornography, they were roaming all over. Now we come back and bring them back to school. What did we do with them? The teacher was told, do psychosocial support. What is psychosocial support? The teacher has no idea. So the children just come back to class. That's why you find some schools will be banned, others will not be banned. Because there are those that know what to do, and they do it. Because these children need to be listened to. They need to be guided. They need to be given direction. Now that is the role of the teacher, because the parent has failed to try and panel beat, because it is trying. because character is built
At home.
And very early in life.
Yeah.
So by the time they are coming to secondary school, we are actually panobiting. So we are trying to panobit. Sometimes it is not possible. Sometimes it is possible. But the issue here is, does the teacher have the knowledge and the skill to do that? These children, they got addicted to phones throughout the country. You have told them to go back to school, they don't have the phone. And I'm not saying they should be allowed to go back to school to phone, because that is the problem of the parent. Why did you buy the phone in the first place?
Okay.
And then why did you allow it to be used throughout? Because now they are addicts. Then you tell them to stay in school for 2 months without their phone, without watching pornography, without their girlfriends. No way.
Wow.
They'll go home.
Now, clearly, there is a lot to deal with because the dynamics of teaching and the environment therein has changed with the time. Suleiman, how can this be tackled?
I want to look at it, the school as a system. And for me, it's not an issue of blaming this individual or the other individual. It's an issue of us as a society collectively looking at the issue and asking ourselves, what is wrong? They have already, I agree with my colleagues, there are a myriad of issues. And there are some of them are contextualized. So it's not, for example, you have school A and school B, you may find different contexts and different things that are affecting, and that's why, for example, the students are burning. There could be issues of emanating from homes. Recently, I was in a school with my colleagues where we do some social activities, I mean, what we call CSRs in this case. And my colleagues went on one-on-one counseling with some of the students. The issues they had that are emanating from homes where children have come from. Some of them are already at the point of almost committing suicide. Now you can imagine such a child coming to a school, appears, maybe doesn't do the work, maybe as a teacher you comment negatively about it. So this child is already carrying a baggage, you bring in another baggage in the context of the environment, then no wonder you'll see that the individual reacting. Then as a society, what have we taught them? Largely as a society, we have in a generalized way, we have taught them the only way to be listened to is through violence. That's the only way. They see it across the board. Recently, we had cases of, I think, the so-called unquote witches being banned. So there's no, they don't learn a better way of solving issues. And they see this from home. They see it on in media, whether social media or mainstream media and all that. So there's a problem there. I think the issue is looking at what is this that is causing this problem. We own up as a society. We investigate, get to know what is it that we have done wrong. If it's me as a teacher, what is it that I can do? If it's me as a parent, what is it that I can do? So that collectively we do. But that's not what is happening. You just recently saw what happened when Buruburu got banned. Teachers, I mean, the parents went there saying our rights, our rights. They were even defying the police. Now, you imagine your child is seeing you there. So tomorrow, what do you expect that child to do? So I need to correct myself first before even I correct my child.
Okay.
Yes.
Very well said. Now, clearly everyone here has a part to play. So the teachers can do their bit, but the rest of society needs to pull their weight too. Now, we take another short break here on Your World, but I remind you of that question of the day. Whom would you like to celebrate in as far as being your favorite teacher or lecturer in your education journey? That hashtag is new normal. If we can have some of that feedback before we take this quick break. We have Fonsi who says, Mrs. Rocket, she taught me English. I was embarrassed that I couldn't speak it well, but she reminded me that being bilingual is more special than speaking only one language. She was a very good person too, who introduced me to the love of reading. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing. Amir says, Imam Ziyad, Ibrahim and Swaleh Hassan, they both taught me the deen and it shaped my life in ways I still get amazed with. May Allah forever bless their family and entire lineage. Thank you, Amir. Another from Babalea, my GHC teacher, Mr. Moshiri, will forever remain in my heart. When you say GHC, you can hear which generation that is. Dr. Odinde Paul says, Madam Alice, that teacher could ensure she beats me every Kiswahili lesson every day. She certainly knew my Kiswahili was not okay. She knew I could not be able to answer Kiswahili questions every time, but she insisted and could beat me like she doesn't care. I hate her even tomorrow. Oh, Idan, pole sana, pole sana. And I think these are some of the things also we can talk about. David Ludogoli says, Mr. Waka Wamubei, Chabakali High School, them days. because he made physics look so simple. Oh, don't we appreciate those teachers that made sciences a little bit easier for us? Juku here with the last one for now. My favorite teacher of all time is Mr. Soita Nabuyole Primary School, Webuye East. He was not just a teacher, he was a friend. Oh, wow. Thank you, Juku, for sharing that. And of course, keep them coming through. That hashtag is new normal. And there's that number at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to call in, please do. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. As I have said this morning, we are intentionally taking time to appreciate the teachers amongst us. They all have left a mark in our lives, and we can say we are today because a teacher somewhere literally walked through with us through this journey of academics. And to help us along, Lydia Ngwiri is still with us. She's a high school teacher, professional counselor. Dr. Suleiman Mwangi, who is a senior education lecturer at the St. Paul's University. Martha Mutei, who is a teacher and also a trainer of ECD teachers, and she comes from Central Primary School, Kitui. We have lost Professor Hezron Mogambi, but at least he chimed in before he left, but still with us, but now on phone, Agri Namisi Executive Secretary Nat Bungoma. Thank you again, teachers, for being part of this very, very informative conversation. Now, let's go back to perhaps the unrest and how that's being handled, and remind ourselves of some of the things that are going on. If we can have that screenshot on our screens about the Muhoho High School scenario. Muhoho High students are right now going home peacefully. They have told the principal instead of banning, they want a break to go home, and so those who want to leave have been released. They have told the principal they will text him the date when they will come back to school. Now, this is an interesting turn of events. Now, let's talk to the counselor around amongst us. It could be peaceful. Yeah. But then again, there are so many aspects of that, screenshot that is disturbing. Yeah. We will text you when we are ready. Yeah. How do you strike the balance, considering, again, the dynamics of life have changed, which is impacting on the teaching, but then again, you still want to keep both the teachers and the students happy?
There is an issue here, and the issue of authority. Who is in charge? Because in every system, there is a person who is in charge. And here the principal is in charge, then followed by the teachers. I know Muhoho High School very well, because as a counselor, I also go there. And by the way, I teach in Kiambu High School, so it's not very far. And what I've discovered about students, because I move around schools and I talk to very many students, there are so many issues that are coming from home. They witnessed a lot of breakups. If we can do research and look at how many families separated during the pandemic, there are so many. And an adolescent at this particular stage, in the age of identifying myself, is totally disturbed. And therefore, some students will react in different ways. Some of them have reacted into drugs, going to drugs. Others have gone into other forms of rebellion. So a few of these, in any school, do not recognize authority.
So how do you remedy this?
Now, the parent should have instilled authority when their children were young. That authority must be respected. But was it done? In most cases, it was not done because the parent was also not there. We are having a lot of absent parents. They are there, they are in America, but they are in Kenya. The children are in Kenya. They are in Kenya, but the children are almost on their own. So this child is not taught the value of respect for authority. And the minute the child cannot respect the authority of the sibling who is older, the authority of the mother, the authority of the father, the next is the authority of the teacher. So the authority of the teacher here, it's now compromised. So we shall tell you when we come. That is total rebellion. Total rebellion. Unfortunately, they are not going to be at Mho forever or whichever school forever.
Yes.
So they are coming out. And total rejection of parent authority, total rejection, where the child does exactly what they want. And of course, they get into trouble with the country now because the legal issues now come in because they're also going to reject the authority of the country. And they will find themselves now in prison. So here we need to have very clear system of who should do what. Because it's not everybody at that school. It's just a few individuals. And you know, there's also mob psychology. Because this one has said we go, if I'm left behind, where will I be found when they come back? So whether I want to go or not, I'll still join in and go with them. But like I said, panel beating, we can try as much as possible as teachers now to bring in the issues of how do I deal with the issues that are happening at home? How do I deal with stress? Because there's a lot of stress. How do I deal with it? That needs continuous guidance and continuous counseling to the student. That must be done by the teacher within the school. And the teacher is not doing the student only, including the parent. Because the parents are very, very ignorant. They have no idea. They don't even know how to handle that adolescent. So the way they are handling their adolescent is the opposite. Now the teacher also does not know, because the teacher only knows the cane. And now that you cannot cane, so what do I do with the adolescent? I don't know what to do. And that is exactly what is happening in school. I actually don't know what to do with them. And therefore teachers have folded their hands.
Okay, so we have a bigger problem on our hands.
Yes. And whether we go for half-term or not, schools will still be banned. See, they were told they are going for half-term.
Yeah.
Why are they still banning?
So this is just a symptom.
It's
we
just
need
a symptom.
to cater for the cause.
We need to go deeper into it and look at where are the stress, because these children are stressed.
Okay, now I hear you loud and clear. Mutei, you deal with ECDE teachers, so you're taking care and fashioning that young mind. So if the dynamics of life have changed as they have, how can you as a teacher now ensure that you are able to instill and influence this young mind early enough to be able to, you know, wade these murky waters?
As an ECDE trainer, you know, I train teachers and I also handle those young children in my class. What I do is, and what I think should be done is that we should instill values early enough, as early as baby class, if there is. Even if the parents have not done it, we should do it immediately the child comes to school. We should instill values, core values, respect. We should instill love. We should instill integrity, honesty, responsibility, and all this, so that this child, as they grow, they will grow knowing that they must respect authority, they must respect their parents, they must respect everybody. And again, we should still take our children to Sunday school. I think each one of us here went through Sunday school. Even if it is not a Christian, we have Muslims. Muslims should take their children to madrasa and all the other religions, because the religion also helps us shape our children. So we should remember, actually like the Bible says, remember the height from where we have fallen. We parents have fallen. We have left the way. The way was when we could like work together with the teachers. work together with the teachers and find out what could be the problem with my child. Because as early as ECDE, as early as PP1, a child can throw tantrums in the supermarket. If you don't buy me this, I don't want to go home, and they start crying. Then what are you supposed to do as a parent? So that when you take this child to the mwalimu, they will not bring these tantrums again. Because actually, the children who are causing this mayhem are the children who started by throwing tantrums in supermarkets and in shops. You must buy me this. If you don't, I will just die. They start crying. And because you want to be a super mom, you buy them whatever they want. Do you know what you're doing? You are creating a kababa and kamama generation. And that is why the kababa and kamama generation are banning schools, and there's nothing we can do.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Now, these are pertinent issues being brought up, and I hope the stakeholders are paying attention because, again, as we said, what we're seeing today is symptomatic of a bigger issue. Now, let's shift gears here. And the quality of education is in question today, right from preschool to university. When did the rain start beating us? Let me bring in Agri. You are now on phone. The quality of education. Where did we go wrong? Because there are those who are saying so much has been introduced with the right, intention, but not done in the best of ways. Talk to us.
Good. Gladys, when we had the new constitution, consultation was the most important thing, and even the constitution has given us room to do consultation.
I can hear you. Go on.
Are you getting me?
Yes, I am. Go on.
Yes, the quality of education, because when people introduce policies without consultation, and I want to go back very clearly, when you reach up and feel like you want to improve the type of education, then you quickly now start bringing in policies. I gave you an example of bringing the issue of students electing a president in school, and then the president becomes in charge of the school. The president attends meetings of the board of management, and you see, Gladys, what happens is that the quality of education will come down, will be compromised if the teachers are not consulted. Anything that a teacher service commission and the Ministry of Education will want to do, kindly please let them consult the teachers. As we are talking right now, the teachers are overwhelmed. The teachers are watchmen. They, after teaching, they have to stay awake in the night so that the dormitories are not banned. These teachers have families. And at the end of it all, you'll find that the teachers have decided, and this is for free, because the teachers whisper to me. They tell us we are now just keeping our jobs. What we are doing to keep our jobs, go to school, teach, so that we don't have issues. They don't want to discipline children, because anytime they attend and no corporal punishment is abolished, they end up being jailed. At the end of it all, the children who have come physically confronting teachers, even with partners in school, you will find that it takes long even for those children to be sentenced, or for any time for the teachers to know that justice has been done. They keep quiet all the time. So what will happen in the near future, if we don't listen to the teachers, we are going to be in trouble. And, the most of the problem of Gladys, and I want for you to accept that,
yes,
is that because of economic strain, parents are only giving birth to 2 children, maximum. And they look at those children and they start talking, and this is my mom, this is my baba. These children are handled as aged. And they are now growing as tigers in the homes and even in schools. If we don't get into organization and start now dealing with, because when we talk about morals, Gladys, morals, we don't start it from school. Morals are taught from home, family background from that time. That's when we impact morals in our children. The teachers will only improve on the morals that have been impacted in children at their early age.
Okay.
So that they now polish and improve on those morals. The children don't respect anybody in society. The society has left every child. Nobody cares about the child in society.
Now, let me stop you at that point. Let me stop you at that point and still focus on the quality of education. In this case, inequality in accessing education continues to widen the gap in the quality of education offered to students. A student in Nairobi is perhaps not, a student in Moyale or Mandera is perhaps not getting the same quality of education as the one in Nairobi. Suleiman, how can this be rectified?
Thank you for the question. You'll allow me to just mention something about the earlier question that you had mentioned. I think the rain started beating us when we brought in cutthroat competition in education, such that the focus is on the many A's that we can produce, whether as a teacher or as a student. So education now, we no longer focused on the learning aspect of it. We are not interested in whether the learner has learned, but how many A's. It doesn't matter how the A's will come. So long as the A's will be there, because that means something. To the student, it means progression. To the teacher, it means that now I'll be more recognized, maybe even be promoted and the like. So that became, that's where the rain started beating us. Then, of course, they have that recognition of teachers in the society and generally the general problem that we have already talked about. Now, coming to your question, I think I'm one of the promoters of the fact that we need to abolish gradually the categorization of schools, and especially secondary schools, where you have national schools, you have extra county, you have county schools. By that itself, even without doing anything else, you've already started inequalities. There's an aspect that is in me as a child or even as a parent that this school is better than the other school, even without knowing about the school. So that's the first problem that we have. So for me, that's the starting point. Of course, it can't happen in a day. It needs to happen gradually. Now, how do we do that? In my view, there should be more focus on those schools that have fewer resources. Today, it's very hard for a national school, very rare for a national school, for instance, to miss a teacher. Rare. It's one of the rarest occasions. But go to those schools that are day schools. You are likely to find that you have very few teachers, yet you expect the same students to compete with those ones from where they have all the facilities and the teachers, and then when they reach the end of the Form 4 and they have done the exams, you tell the one who came from that lower school, quote unquote, that you have not performed well, so you can't do course A. But the one from this other school can do. For me, it is not news if a national school has A's. In any case, they pick the best. But it's news to me if that day school produced even a B. It is news. It means a lot was done in that school by teachers and even the community largely, because it's not just the role of the teacher. So I think that's one of the things. I focus much more on those institutions that have fewer resources that would help us. Then lastly, catering for the people who, quote unquote, matter most in the education sector, the teachers. We've already talked about that. If you focus on they are motivated, they feel good. And by the way, for me, motivation is not just an issue of the salary. It's an issue of how do you treat me? How do you make me feel? For instance, right now we are talking about the teacher professional development courses, which are happening, which are supposed to happen rather. It's a good thing. But how is it being introduced? You hear threats. If you don't do this, this will happen. Before even I start, you've already threatened me. So I'm wondering, why should you threaten me? So I'll go, but because I'm feeling threatened and I need to retain my job. So how can we do it differently so that I feel encouraged? I need to go for that TPD and learn something. Not because you threatened me, because the threats will only work for a certain duration. It means I'll go, I'll not learn anything in the process. So what is it that you expect? Very few changes that you'll expect even after going through that, if it came through threats.
Okay, now we have a caller from Moyale actually. His name is Kadir. Kadir, what's your question or comment?
Good morning, viewers.
Good morning.
I'm Kadir Muidin from Moyale.
Yes.
On the border of Kenya and Ethiopia. I'm a retired education officer and a parent as well. I mean, the blame on what is going on in our public actually falls on all the stakeholders. For one thing, education is now exam-oriented. And the workload on our children is unbearable. It's just like telling someone to carry a sackload of sugar. I can carry it for some time, but I can't carry it for long. I'll definitely drop it down. These days we see, I have a daughter in class 8. She wakes up at 4, and she comes back almost at night. I've never seen these students being taken for recreation activities. You see, they are always constantly under tuition, constantly under learning. Those days when if I am to recall my good old days, we used to go for ball games, athletics and all these things. These things are no longer there. Now these children are always under pressure. I would apportion big blame on our parents also, because they expect our children, to get those high marks. And when these children come from the school where they have been constantly under tuition, constantly under learning, we don't even give these children time to explore things on their own, to explore nature, to explore the topics that they learn. We are always spoon-feeding them. This juvenile effort cannot bear this workload, this pressure. What I can see, it is this pressure that is making these children to crack. The other thing about inequality, it's a lot there. Because I've been an education officer, I have been seeing, coping with 3 teachers for 8 classes. Wow. The shortages of teachers here is appalling. And now with CBC, learning is actually digitalized. It's what they call e-learning. These things after I've left. These things are not there in our place. Kids are supposed to have some topics through these gadgets. We don't have it here. So the gap will keep on yawning. Inequality exists. The lack of teachers here, I cannot even comment on it actually.
Kadir, we hear you, and we hear your frustration. Thank you for making time all the way from Moyale. He was an education officer, and you clearly can hear the passion he has because he understands the gaps in the system. And as it has been said over and over again, these are some of the things that actually demoralize a teacher who really passionately wants to pass on that education or knowledge to these young minds. Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, I'll put this across to you, Lydia. What is the future of the teaching profession? So many changes have happened throughout the year. Education does not look the same. Now we're dealing with CBC, and we are also bringing up our children in different times. Where do you see the profession of teaching taking us?
We'll still continue having teachers, but I wish we would have a sitting where it is looked into how do we motivate the teachers to be happy teachers, because teachers are not happy, not because of the salary. When you look at the new scale, it is there and the salary is good. But for one to go up there, it takes time, it takes a lot of commitment, sometimes very frustrating. I've seen teachers that have done interviews and they have failed, very frustrating, and you expect that teacher to continue teaching in a class when they are feeling demoralized. It will take the hand of God for that teacher to feel, I belong here. There is also the issue of transfers, delocalization. When you take a teacher from Nairobi and you take them to Kirifi, and they were comfortable, maybe this is where their home is, their children, their husband or their wife or whoever, and then you have taken them there. Are they really going to teach? We have to look at some policies that are really demoralizing teachers, so that we have a candid conversation where, how do we go about it? Of course, teachers must teach, yeah, and we signed that we can teach anywhere, but how am I going there? Under what circumstances? What am I feeling as a teacher? Then we also need to have, maybe in the teaching colleges, we bring in skills of guidance, a little bit more than they are all there today. Or, I don't know how we are going to, so that we can have many teachers as counselors. We say every teacher is a counselor, but they are not trained as counselors. The little that we do at university, even when I'm doing, I'm teaching basic counseling skills and all that, the teachers, yeah, I had Sigma, I had something like that. I had, when I was in college, I had something like that. What is I call, I had something like that. because they are concentrating on what they are teaching. And then in the process, we also have to do something about how much do we teach, because the syllabus is also too wide. And we are concentrating on passing the exam. And right now we have a problem with Form 3. If you ask secondary school teachers, the greatest class that has a problem is Form 3. Why Form 3? After COVID, they have to cover the syllabus in 2 years because they are doing the exam next year. The Form 4s are doing the exam in April, the Form 3s are doing the exam in December. We are so much behind in the syllabus, so we are pushing them, because at the end of the year, the TSC is not going to ask me much. They are going to ask me, how many A's did you get?
Yes.
Not how many students I talked to that were under stress and were able to concentrate.
Okay, yes. I'll stop you there. Let me hear from Agri, even as he represents the unionists in this country who cater for the welfare of the teachers. Where do you see the future of this profession, Agri, in 30 seconds?
Gladys, the future of this...
Agri, are you there?
Yes. Are you getting me?
Yes, I am.
The future of our profession is first that we need to look at the budget allocation in terms of the human resource, in terms of infrastructure, and in terms of ensuring that there is serious training of the human resource. There is also need to have a very serious conversation, national conversation, serious national conversation, Gladys, to see and where we are very sincere, so that we don't just pick people who will come up and say this is where we go. People must say what is aiding us and how best we can improve so that we can move forward. The moment the teacher is valued, other things will really work very well. And I want to say thank you very much for also giving you the opportunity to be part and parcel of this conversation.
You're very welcome, and we celebrate you now. Martha and Suleiman, if you can do this for me in 30 seconds, what would you like to pass across in as far as this teaching profession is concerned?
What I would like to pass across is that teachers should be respected. Teachers should be treated with the amount of integrity that they deserve. Teachers should be motivated. I want to big up my head teacher, who has been treating us to Mombasa for motivation. How I wish Mr. Kaboro could be a teacher to every other teacher, because he has been treating us well, he has been motivating us. I wish other HOIs, head of institutions, could emulate him. Okay. Big up to you, sir.
All right, that is Central Primary School in Kitui County. Thank you, Dr. Suleiman.
Thank you. A teaching profession will still continue being there so long as a society we have children and we'll have education. And therefore that tells us it's an area that we need to focus, to have more interest in. It's molding our future, the future of our children. So we need to put more investments, both in terms of resources that we do have as a society, as a government, and even our own time as parents, for example, we need to be concerned. And therefore, for me, I'm even happy about CBC, because parents are now being involved much more than they were being involved before. And that's a positive thing as far as I'm concerned. There are challenges, yes, but I think it's something that is positive, that we can continue. So we need to invest much more, all of us as a society.
Definitely a conversation that would need more hours than we had this morning, but I'm glad we got the chance to have it. Lydia Ngwiri, high school teacher, professional counselor, Dr. Suleiman Mwangi, senior education lecturer, St. Paul's University, Martha Mutei, ECDE trainer, and of course herself a primary school teacher at Central Primary School in Kitui County. Agri Namisi, executive secretary, Nat Bungoma East, he's on the phone with us, and earlier on we were joined by Professor Hezron Mogambi, who is an education expert and lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Again, teachers, these are the unsung heroes, because clearly you've had today and you have a story of your own of how much they have impacted on your lives. Speaking of which, do we still have some feedback we can close with? Okay, my director says our time is up, so we shall leave it there for now, but let this conversation continue on our social media platforms, even as we part on the back of these teachers that have undeniably changed our lives forever. Thank you for your time. Tomorrow we shed light on the ongoing pandemic, with the world seemingly going back to normal, including here in Kenya after the ease of COVID-19 restrictions. We cannot ignore the fact that the pandemic is still real and with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not out of the woods yet, especially with concerns of a new and deadlier variant looming. So as we go into the holiday season and the political campaign period, how can we all ensure we do not bring the country to its knees? We engage health experts on the same tomorrow from 7 a.m. See you then.